Welcome to Perimenopausal Athletes and Beyond. I am here. I am so excited about this conversation. As you know, that I get excited about all the incredible conversations that I have, but today we have Trish Curling, a yoga teacher, personal trainer, owner of Anio Yoga, and welcome. Welcome, Trish.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Neil. I'm honored to be here, honored that you asked. So thank you.
Well, I asked because you have an incredible, there's the story, your own personal story, how you came to yoga, what you bring to it, what we can learn as athletes in perimenopause and beyond. That's all the things we're going to get into today. So first of all, I just want to tell everybody a little bit more about you because of your just amazing awesomeness. And then also just a little bit about what you're taking on. So Trish has, the 200-hour yoga teacher training, and she's this is super interesting. I need to ask you about this nervous system and restorative yoga. We talk so much about the nervous system and stress response and what that means. And in part, what we're doing here in this series is we're trying to look at, okay, so we're thinking about our year. How do we think about our year differently than we have before? Because everything has to be thrown out, like the annual training plan. I want us to throw out that idea, and I want us to bring in new ideas. And that's why I'm so keen to talk to you. Also, therapeutics of the shoulder, hip, and spine through yoga medicine. We're going to hear a little bit more about that. You really are working in a holistic way. You create amazing environments. Just go to her website and you just get that feeling about the environment and the love, actually. I mean, you say it's safe and fun and approachable, but it's a space that feels really lovable, like really held in a good space. So, yeah, I know that's funny to say over a website, but you just get these ideas. So that's why Trish.
I'll take it.
Can you tell us just a little bit more about, right before we came on, you were telling me a little bit more about what you're taking on. And I think it's really important to bring into context of this peeling on the onion and understanding ourselves. And so I'm going to stop talking.
No, that's okay. Yeah. I've decided to, and just come to a point where I felt both equally professionally and personally, that I just needed to go a little further. So I just had, and I'm very, I'm the type of person that I have to respond to my instinct. I have to respond to that deep desire and that message or whatever it is that's coming into me. So I was really being pulled and called towards completing my 500-hour yoga therapeutic specialist with yoga medicine. So for me, that means another couple of courses that I'm working on right now, an additional anatomy course, and myofascial release. And then outside of that, I'm also doing an additional 300-hour training right now as well with the Yogi Mat. Brilliant anatomy, biomechanics, philosophy, just amazing ways to really tune into your body and really get to know your body. And I needed that. I knew I was at a point again where I needed that personally. But because I'm also so passionate about seeing my clients find themselves, I want them to progress, and I want them to feel, as you said, like supported by me, but supported by themselves. So that was really important for me to bring this in so that I can really just kind of continue to add to the toolbox. I want to be able to send that out into my clients and the people that I work with in classes and so on. So that's where it's at for me right now.
Well, and it's really interesting because part of like why here we are, we're athletes, in a traditional way. Athlete means we're going to go and perform in an expanded way. It's anybody who put exercise into their day with purpose. And why is it that I believe that this, I want to bring into the conversation of yoga? And partly, it's your own how you have come to know your body. Now, you've said it in two different ways. First of all, how you came into yoga, I think is important to think about. And so I want to just have that, because you just said, I felt like I really had to go and deepen my knowledge. I had to trust my instinct. I had to go and follow my path. But as we are in perimenopause and beyond, and we're trying to understand what is our path forward to be the best athletes that we can be, to be in health, to be have longevity, it is something that I want to explore with you just a little bit more, because that we struggle
Absolutely.
to actually make those decisions that are so fundamental to who we want to be. Can you share just a little bit about that journey that you came to, deciding not just for your next 500 hours in yoga medicine and deepening that knowledge, but how you came to it just in general too?
So long, I always say long story or short story. I'll try to make it as
It'll be the
compact as
perfect story, however you bring it to us.
as compact as possible.
Yeah.
So many years ago in my 20s, I worked for a big box gym. I was working as a personal trainer. I was teaching group fitness classes. Absolutely loved it. Fantastic. It was great. My daughter was young at the time, so I was able to have flexibility with scheduling, all those things that we, want in those periods of our lives. And but financially it wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. So I went into teaching. I taught elementary school for 9 years. And great. But during that time, I just knew that, again, listening to my instinct and my calling, something was always a little missing for me. There were great rewards there. I worked with great people, many different experiences in a variety of schools, but something was just not there for me. And nearing I think it was maybe 6 years into my career, 7 years into my career, my older brother passed away. And so that had an
Massive
impact on me that I can't even put into words. I have two brothers, both of them my best friends, and losing him was just absolute devastation.
Yeah.
And, again, how we start to view life and start to think about, where am I right now? What is the meaning of life? We can all say, one life, one chance, which is something I always say, but I really stepped into the full meaning of that when he passed. And he had himself had pursued his dream just before he passed, and left his career and left his job. And I just thought, this is it. Like, he was, days away from being, or a month, I think it was, not even days away from being 42. Healthy guy, worked out. I mean, I've got pictures of him on my Instagram all over the place. And, ate well and all those things, but it was just his time. And I just thought, I can't live another day thinking I can't live in my purpose. I can't do something that I'm passionate about. And I spent 4 years after that being completely numb. And I just got to the point where I just couldn't live like that anymore. So I seeked out an old friend who I'd worked with at the gym, and she was teaching yoga. And I used to see her and be very inspired by her on her social media. And I decided to reach out to her. And it was really humbling because, here's me, prior or previous personal trainer as well, and I have to reach out. So it was a very, very humbling time. And she was just with open arms. Between her and her husband, who was a manual therapist or a massage therapist, both of them just brought me into this world of really starting to just get into myself and my body and understand that I could change the way that I was feeling. Physically, emotionally, I was a wreck. Physically, I became a wreck because of that emotional impact, the injuries that just compiled. I was just completely out of control in that way. So that all shifted when I really went all in and decided to, she said to me, and this is the pivotal moment, she said to me one day, Trish, would you ever think you'd leave teaching and come back to personal training or to yoga? And I said, yes, immediately, no hesitation.
Wow. Right.
So I knew that was it. And decided to take the journey. Within a year of working with her, I had recertified in PT, and I had decided to take my studies for yoga, my first 200 hours. And that's it. I mean,
you never look back.
Never look back. Left teaching, and here we go.
And I mean, it's really important just to take a moment and think about how do we each do these things. And I mean, we don't all have to leave our careers. I mean, I left a career path as well to come into this role of coach, and specifically for women in perimenopause and beyond.
Mhm.
But it's like, how do we come to our truth and to the core of our being, and to now in your practice now you continuously are learning more about yourself. And
Mhm.
I'm putting words into your mouth, or actually reflecting what you had said to me earlier, is that, you know, this it just keeps flowering, like it just keeps opening and opening and
Right.
opening. And that is like, okay, so now I'm segueing into your understanding of yoga, and why is it that yoga can be, you know, we're coming into a place of the year in which we may think of the fall here in North America, or, you know, if you're in the other hemisphere, maybe in, you know, going into the spring, or it could be either or,
Mhm.
but as a regeneration,
Mhm.
or a fueling, or you know, a placing down your roots again so that
Mhm.
we can grow. Or if it is spring where you are, then maybe it's something like, let's get ready to go open. And yoga is a really interesting practice that we can use for that. So can you share why how you would see yoga optimized in our training, either for replenishment or for other reasons as well?
Yeah, in so many ways. I mean, first of all, I think that it's the first gift is time.
Mm,
You just get this time with yourself. And even if your gateway is just the asana or just the physical practice, even if that's the way where you go initially. And that's really what it was for me too, because I'm such a physical person. That was the attraction right away. I can
mm,
move, I can breathe. And it became this thing of, you know, yeah, I can go to yoga and all those other pieces and all the other things in my mind can just kind of move to the background for a little bit. It doesn't go away, but it can shift.
yeah.
And so I think it's a gift for people to be able to go and just spend that time with themselves, and to really start to deepen their understanding of the magnitude of the power of our breath and our
Mm,
breathing.
mm,
Something that we do automatically but don't notice in times of sport and, you know, great stress. It's our sport, it's our passion, it's our love, but
mm,
can we, you know, just dial back for a minute and, you know, reap the benefits of time to be still, time to breathe, time to really look at the intricacies as well. Even, you know, how can we benefit our sport? We get so much time to be able to really be more aware of our bodies in the physical practice, and we get to um, recover. You know, we were, I think we were talking briefly before about, you know, restorative yoga, or maybe we were talking about that at the beginning here.
mhm,
And just that recovery time as well, for sure. You know, we spend
mhm.
so much time in that fight or flight.
Yeah.
So to be able to step back a little bit and explore different areas of a practice, I think can really contribute to that. And
Mhm.
again, perimenopausal, you know, reducing or having a different response to stress is so important at this time.
Mhm.
You know, for me, I had went under major stress a couple of years ago, and my hormones were everywhere,
Yeah.
and you know, real challenges, you know, with my cycle.
Huh.
And it wasn't until I had to step back again, you know, this constant learning. Step back, take your time, take care of yourself, and honor the stages. Right now, you know, you're in a new stage potentially of the way that you perform in sport, or you're in a new stage of how you are, you know, showing up in life. So I
Mhm.
think yoga allows you that understanding, that reflection, to take the time to notice that, and that's how we get to know ourselves.
I think it's really interesting. Yeah. Like this idea of time, and what what that gives us access to. And
Right.
we often want to do more to get it
Yes.
done, when, and what you're really talking about, or what I really am hearing you say, is this, you know, and it's a really important part of my own coaching philosophy, is this: the first step is awareness and acknowledgement.
Yes.
And when we're such physical beings, I think that yoga is a place where we can start to build that, because it's really hard not to do.
Right.
Like, I'm a doer. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a bit of an action taker. So when I could go and do yoga, but the yoga in itself would allow me the space to find
Right.
that awareness.
Right.
And yeah.
And not do sometimes.
And not do. Well, yeah, I mean, you say lie down.
Yeah.
Lie down and breathe. And then I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
doing that. Okay. I'm gonna breathe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that guided opportunity to just to be open to another way of being, which is where we really find our own creativity to solve some of the challenges that we might be facing.
Yes.
So, okay, so this is this is one part of yoga. So this is one part of understanding how to bring in that, parasympathetic nervous system, restoration. So if we're finding ourselves in, a place during our week. Now, I think that this is important to say potentially, is that we're not just talking about, maybe it is important as we transition into a different part of our season, but we can also bring it into our recovery weeks if that's important, or recovery days if that's important, to keep on getting ourselves grounded in that. But there's another part of yoga that I think is important to discover, or I would love to hear what you have to say on that. And that is this idea of mobility and movement and openness. And well, we're going to share what you are giving as a free gift to the listeners here of, a hip opening. And so can you talk a little bit more about the physicality of what that gives you access to, and what that might be interesting for the women in perimenopause and beyond?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, just the intricacies of the biomechanics of the postures, even. So if that's a direction which I'm really interested in and continuing to learn so much more about, there's this ability to learn how to really, I didn't know that if I pull my shoulder blade in towards the spine, I can have that mobility in my lunge, as opposed to just taking my arm up, breathe in, inhale, lifting my arm up, draw the shoulder blade back, reach back, then there's this ability to create more mobility and enhance the mobility, and also tensioning muscles and how to oppose, muscles with joint action, and all of those things that we can really pay attention to in the physical practice that can support our sport, right?
Right.
Yes, the hip opening practice. I mean, of course, we can stretch and we can put our bodies into positions, but what I'm really learning more about now too, and what I'm passionate about sharing, not necessarily within the context of perimenopausal and beyond, but some other classes as well that I've been doing on Insight Timer, where I'm learning to almost like PNF stretching, so that contraction and then the release, and then being able to access deeper, opening and deeper hip opening, or, shoulder actions, whatever the case may be. And also where to put things in space. So if you're working on a balance posture, or you're doing a balance sequence in yoga, of course, that's an easy translation into sport. If you are, a basketball player, if you are, whatever sport that is, you have tennis, you know what I mean? Tennis, you're in, can I be a little bit more physical here? Tennis,
Yeah.
You're in half moon.
Right.
So
another love this. Yeah.
So it's easily transferable. And because, again, that time piece, because you get time to really, when you're playing tennis, you don't necessarily get that time. Your body just needs to respond. But in yoga, you can teach your body to respond with these actions, with the alignment, and you can say, oh, okay, I need to contract here. I need to breathe here. I need to open here. And then the more that we do that, the more that we practice that, our body then will respond that way. When we go to sport, your body's ready. I already know where to go. I already know where to be. So to me, it's just a seamless transition into whatever we're doing.
Neat. And I love Al so much. breathing it through movement is something that we also have to really learn. I don't think I really did that as a professional athlete. I don't think I just breathe, like I just was like, like, like
Yeah,
more of that
absolutely.
sympathetic nervous system breath. Let's get as much as I possibly can get in, rather than deepening
Absolutely.
the breath and understanding how that facilitates the movement. And we was working within Team Element, to brought in a breath expert to discuss this, this very thing.
Mm,
But it comes in so many different ways. Like we can
definitely.
practice it just all the time, really, but and also in the movement that we do. So yoga would facilitate that. That's really neat. So where would be the best place for I mean, there are so many different types of yoga, and
Mm.
where would you think is a like best place for athletes, people that want to use it in both a body awareness or a restorative, or like how do we start with this, or where do we go and how often, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say potentially, especially if somebody is maybe unsure, hasn't done it before, a nice place to start might be just with, piecing that into even your recovery days at first.
Right.
Uh, Visiting a restorative yoga practice where you're using a lot of props. I have some of my props behind me, like blocks, bolsters, blankets. Restorative yoga is very heavy, very prop heavy. And in that practice, you stay in the postures, could be anywhere from 3 minutes, which is probably a good minimum so for the body to actually
Mhm.
respond, anywhere above, 5, 10, sometimes even 15 or more minutes, just
Yeah.
depending on what you're doing and what you have time for. Because not only are you being able to relax in terms of staying there, breath, you're supported by the postures, you're not in this physical stretching action or a physical doing. You are really, it's called like the do nothing practice. You're
Right.
setting up, you're laying there, you have that time to down regulate nervous system, you have that time to equally balance sympathetic, parasympathetic. So that's amazing for recovery. We're like, as you said, in your
Yeah.
in your sport, you were like, I'm going, like I'm doing this, I'm performing. So to take a moment to step away from that,
Mhm.
not only you're getting rest, but you're getting active rest. So
Right.
now you feel like this isn't something just to do, which is great before bed. I very often, especially when I'm having difficulty sleeping,
Yeah.
do a couple of postures before I go to sleep. But in the middle of the day,
Mm.
you know it doesn't have to be a full practice. It could be one or two postures over 10 minutes, and then you're just revived. So, and of course, like anything else, the more often you do it, the better the response is, the more that you're actually going to feel the benefit. Because of course we're not going to go to the mat the first time and say, oh, I'm fixed,
Mhm.
this is great. It's constant. And as I said, even for me, still having some challenges with sleep sometimes, just depending on the stress levels in my schedule or whatever's happening with me in my personal life or professional life, whatever's happening. That's the tool bag. That's in the tool bag to go to and say, you know what, I have this. I can go and I can rest. So, um, you know, 10 minutes, 2, 3 times a week, maybe even just starting twice a week.
Huh.
Let
Yeah.
yourself off the hook to just kind of visit it, see how it goes. And then I don't teach yin personally, but I've taken yin classes from phenomenal teachers, and the benefits there as well are fantastic. You are also staying in those postures a little bit longer, but you're kind of tensioning the tissues a little bit, your connective tissues a little bit more in those postures. So um, again, very a practice that can be very useful, again, in terms of how you want to get to know your body and how you can actually, I don't want to say the word change, but transform or develop into the direction that you want to go into.
So restorative yoga, like, so what the words that we're looking for is either, go to visit you in your practice, have you as a guide, or if there's if you're able to access, a local yoga studio, they would be looking for words like restorative or
Absolutely.
yin
Yin,
yoga.
hatha,
Yeah.
You know, a gentle practice. There's so many different ways that people might describe things.
Yeah.
So looking first and for those types of things, I
Those
think are
things.
a good idea.
Yeah. And as opposed to another type of yoga, which would be, you know, an aggressive strengthening yoga, which is, I mean, that's a whole other ball game in which if you want to get your, because there can be hard yoga, like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, a
Yeah.
vinyasa practice, again, too, can be very accessible.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you are, again, a very physical person, you are, you know, an athlete, then you may be very attracted to that. I was very attracted to vinyasa. That's what I teach. I'm very passionate about vinyasa as well.
Yeah.
Because you do get this flow of breath and movement, and, you know, that's just so meditative in its own quality. But just finding what will work for you in terms of levels of that. And at the same time, the practice is very much that, hey, if something isn't working for you in a particular class, take a pause, lay down in a child's pose, come into shavasana.
Yeah.
You can rest and then join back in the practice whenever you want. It's not about performing or getting from the beginning to the end. It's just about being present there.
It's really a different way of being, and not like performing, getting from the beginning to the end and letting that go. For an athlete is, we have workouts, we start workouts, we finish workouts, and hopefully we get it through in the way that we were supposed to, if you're following a program of a coach. And it's, you know, that intensity that you're bringing forward in so much of, even if it's a recovery ride. Sometimes I know my athletes have a really, really hard time leaving their heart rate monitors at home.
Yeah. Wow,
or leaving their power meters at home and be like, yeah. So it's a really allowing a release there. All right. So there is, okay, so what I want to share with everybody is where they can find you. And so how can they find you?
Yes, I'm in a few places.
So
I am on Instagram mostly.
Yeah.
So Anio Yoga is my handle, and there's a story with that too. Very quickly, my brother, my older brother who passed, gave me the name Ani. He called me Ani from a book called Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And because I really wanted an African name. We used to read a lot of African history, and I wanted to bring that back into my life. And so he called me Ani. So of course, everything that I do for him, my business, leaving teaching, all of that is for him. So it's Ani O Yoga. That's my handle. And I'm on Facebook. You can find me at my website, www.anioyoga.com. I have a YouTube channel.
Yeah. And we'll have all those links available on your page as well. And you're giving a free gift. It's called The Benefits of Yoga and Strength Training Guide, and includes a 30-minute hip opening. So definitely go and check that out. Did you want to say anything else about what that is so people have access to it?
Yeah, it's just a brief insight into, you know, a lot of what we discussed today. Body awareness, how it supports performance in sport, and then also, you know, recovery as well. And then that link to that 30-minute hip opening practice, which is typically only available to my clients, but
woohoo, we get it. So thank you for that. Now, of course, I want to finish it off with my rapid fire questions that I ask everybody. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Give us one moment of courage.
Leaving teaching and moving right into the wellness space.
Yeah.
That was big.
It's big. You know, it's often that I hear these big moves of, leaving something of security and just being open to something that's completely unknown, but yet it's the best thing. So for all those that are listening, that are considering, you know, how do I move? You know, we keep on hearing this amazing courage of speakers. What is one thing you are curious about right now?
I'm curious about the body always. So that brings me back to what I was talking about in terms of my studies now. I'm curious about developing myself as a person so that I can bring more into the work that I do. So I continue to be curious about the body.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's like so crazy. So crazy, the body. And what is one thing that you're really grateful for right now?
I am grateful for time. I'm grateful for this time, as difficult and as challenging as it's been for so many of us in many different ways.
Mhm.
I am grateful for what I do, and I'm grateful for the time to study, learn, and execute.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. Yeah, we always think of the lack of, and yet to have the gratitude for what we do have. I think that that comes closely to your brother and understanding time in a really different and profound way. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us that we really, yeah, I'll give you the last words.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes as challenging and as difficult it can be, just following our true path, I think is just the most rewarding thing. So
Mm.
whatever that means, if that's in sport, if that's in stages in your life, if it's a career change, if it is a personal change, follow it, because the rewards are huge.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, that's a wrap. So thank you all for listening, and we will be back with more.
Thank you so much, Neil.
Bye.